A man who built his name saving other people's lives ends up taking his own wife's. A 12-year-old girl witnesses a scene inside her own home that no child should ever have to see. And while the whole world believed they were watching a perfect couple, behind closed doors, a silent nightmare was unfolding. One that would end in nothing but death. Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Adam, and if this is your first time here, this is a place where we dig into true stories that bring suspense, tragedy, and the darkest corners of human nature into the light. Today's story is about Dr. Mohammed Shamji and his wife, Dr. Elana Fric Shamji, two brilliant doctors whose lives looked, from the outside, like something out of a fairy tale. But behind that image was a prison, and only one person was trapped inside it, Elana. If you're into true crime, stick around to the end, and don't forget to hit subscribe so you never miss a story like this one. Let's get into it. Elana Christina Fric was born in September 1977 in Windsor, Ontario, Canada. Her parents, George and Anna, had immigrated from Croatia to North America in the early 1970s, chasing a fresh start in a new country. Elana was the younger of two daughters. Her older sister was named Caroline, and the two girls were close from the time they were little. Elana's birth itself was considered something of a miracle in the family. After Anna's first pregnancy, she'd suffered such serious complications that doctors told her she'd never be able to have another child. But fate had other plans, and Elana arrived as a bright spot in the family's life. George and Anna both worked at a large car factory. Life wasn't easy for them, but they poured everything they had into giving their daughters the things that mattered most: a solid education, a strong work ethic, and self-confidence. None of that effort went to waste. From an early age, Elana stood out from other kids. She spent most of her free time buried in books, but she also found time for dance classes, gymnastics, and track and field. People were amazed at how much one kid could juggle and how much energy and drive she had doing it. By middle school, Elana was already taking summer jobs to help support her family, working in cornfields to cover her own expenses and pitch in at home. Most kids that age are busy playing. Elana was learning a sense of responsibility that would stay with her for the rest of her life. By the time she reached high school, she already knew exactly what she wanted: to become a doctor. She excelled in math and science, graduated at the top of her class, and got into a highly respected medical university without a hitch. But that was only the beginning of her education. Someone was about to enter her life who would change everything that came after. In the next chapter, we'll look at how Elana found her first love, and how that relationship set her on a path that would eventually reshape her entire destiny. Back in high school, Elana met a young man named Matthew Ryan. The two had known each other for years, and when they ended up enrolling in the same medical program, their friendship turned romantic. It was a good time for both of them, young, ambitious, and picturing a future together. After graduation, Elana decided to move to Ottawa to complete her residency at the university in the capital. Matthew, meanwhile, chose to take a job at a local hospital instead of following her, and didn't pursue further education. That decision, small as it seemed at the time, became the foundation of a widening gap between them. They kept the relationship going long distance for a while. There was even talk of marriage. But as time went on, it became obvious that their paths were pulling in different directions. Elana was interning at one of the country's top clinics and chasing a doctorate, while Matthew's career had stalled. By 2002, they mutually agreed to stay friends instead of getting married. The breakup wasn't easy for Elana, but she threw herself into her career. She worked hard, built her reputation, and proved to herself every single day that she wasn't just a good doctor. She was a strong, independent woman. No one could have guessed that one night shift would change everything. In February 2003, during a night shift at the hospital, Elana walked into the staff room and noticed a new colleague, someone she would never forget. It wasn't just a chance encounter. It was the start of a story that would end up defining the rest of her life. That man's name was Mohammed Shamji. He was just a year older than Elana and was doing his residency in the neurosurgery department. There was something in his eyes, a kind of depth, a secret that hadn't come to light yet, and without knowing it, Elana was already drawn in. In the next chapter, we'll find out who Mohammed Shamji really was, what kind of family he came from, and how a relationship that was unbalanced from day one, love on one side, silence on the other, actually began. Mohammed Shamji was born and raised in Ottawa in a family where medicine ran deep. His father, Farid Shamji, was a well-known surgeon, and his mother, Edith, was an accomplished psychiatrist. Mohammed's older brother, Ali, was also a medical biophysicist. Both brothers were Yale graduates, and Mohammed later went on to complete his doctorate at a research university in Western Ontario. The moment Elana noticed him, she was immediately drawn to this tall, dark-haired, quiet young man. But Mohammed didn't show much interest back. He seemed lost in his own world, as if nothing quite carried the weight for him that it did for her. Elana fell for him at first sight and started actively trying to catch his attention. Eventually, Mohammed asked around, got her number from a colleague, and sent her a message. That's how their relationship began, but it was strange from the very start. To Elana, Mohammed came across as shy and reserved. He never made the first move, seemed uncomfortable on dates, would abruptly change the subject or go quiet altogether, like he wasn't fully present. It later turned out that this wasn't shyness at all. It was a simple lack of interest. At the time, Mohammed was already seeing another woman, but he kept that hidden from the colleague who was quickly falling for him. When Elana found out about the other woman, instead of walking away, she doubled down and decided she would win him over completely. Their relationship went through a rocky first year. They broke up and got back together 3 separate times, mostly because Elana refused to give up. Her parents knew all about it and repeatedly urged her to leave him, but Elana stood firm, convinced she'd found true love. It was a one-sided game from the start. Elana showered him with gifts, surprises, and home-cooked meals, and Mohammed accepted all of it while rarely giving much back. That imbalance slowly turned into an emotional dependency for Elana, one that would go on to become her greatest vulnerability. In the summer of 2004, Elana told Mohammed she was pregnant. The news brought more anxiety than joy for either of them. Neither felt ready, but Mohammed, raised in a strict religious household, felt obligated by tradition to marry the mother of his child before the baby was born. In early September 2004, the couple got married in 2 separate ceremonies. The first followed Mohammed's family traditions. The second, held among friends, took place at one of the trendiest restaurant venues in the city. The newlyweds looked happy, deeply in love. No one could have guessed this marriage was the beginning of a disaster that would one day end in bloodshed. The newly married couple settled into a beautiful home in one of Ottawa's upscale neighborhoods. In January 2005, their first child, a daughter, Jasmine, was born. But her arrival didn't strengthen the marriage. Mohammed was so consumed by his career and further education that his wife and newborn daughter became secondary in his life. He didn't even try to hide his disappointment that he'd wanted a son, not a daughter. Elana took maternity leave to focus on the household and her daughter. That only irritated her husband further. He'd come home from work and retreat straight to his home office, avoiding time with his wife and child. Over time, he grew increasingly irritable, criticizing her appearance, refusing to eat what she cooked, and calling her stupid and useless. Elana tried to keep her struggles to herself, not telling her closest friends, not even her own parents. But one day, while she was on the phone with her mother, Mohammed came home in a bad mood and started hurling insults at her, and her mother heard the whole thing. Anna tried to defend her daughter, but her son-in-law turned around and blamed Elana entirely for the state of their marriage. Anna urged her daughter to file for divorce and leave the man mistreating her, but Elana flatly refused, insisting she loved her husband and could handle it herself. That silence wouldn't hold for much longer, because a night was coming that would push things far beyond insults, straight into physical violence. In the summer of 2005, things reached a breaking point. In a fit of rage, Mohammed punched Elana in the face hard enough to break her nose. Elana grabbed her baby and fled to a friend's house, then filed a domestic violence report with the police. This time, she decided she was done. She would divorce him and leave for good. But then Mohammed did an about-face. He begged her to come back, swore he'd never lay a hand on her again, promised he'd never even raise his voice. He said he would change, that their family life would become everything she'd ever dreamed of, and that he'd learn to control his temper. His remorse looked completely genuine, but underneath it was a far more self-serving motive. The young neurosurgeon was preparing to apply to Duke University for his doctorate, and a criminal conviction could have ended his entire medical career. Mohammed cared about one thing: himself and his future. And he succeeded in convincing Elana to drop the charges and cancel the divorce filing. Not only did Elana withdraw her report, she agreed to move with him to North Carolina, where he planned to continue his studies. Friends and family were baffled. Why wouldn't she leave her abusive husband? Why would she withdraw the police report? When she announced she was moving to another country with him, everyone tried to talk her out of it. She refused to budge. Fric was smart, educated, hardworking, and fiercely independent. Financially self-sufficient and capable of achieving any career goal she set for herself. But her destructive attachment to this relationship and her emotional dependence on her husband outweighed all of that. She was willing to sacrifice everything for a marriage that had brought her nothing but pain. Despite all of it, once they moved to the United States, a strange calm settled over their lives. A period of relative peace we'll dig into in the next chapter. But was that peace real, or just the quiet before another storm? Once in the US, Mohammed was accepted into an extremely competitive biomedical engineering program. Around the same time, Elana enrolled in a master's program at Duke School of Policy and Health, earning a scholarship that covered her full tuition. In this new environment, something like calm settled between them. They started spending more time together, both absorbed in their studies, both working toward their own goals. It felt for a while like a fresh start, like they were leaving the old pain behind. Their relationship seemed stable enough that they decided to have a second child. In August 2007, their younger daughter, Faisa, was born. But once again, Mohammed couldn't hide his disappointment. He'd hoped, again, for a son. For Elana, this felt like new hope. She believed that maybe this new country, this new chapter of life, would finally fix things between them for good. She was thriving academically, caring for her children, and putting real effort into rebuilding her marriage. But that calm wasn't permanent. Old habits and old patterns tend to resurface, especially once the environment changes again. Duke was a bright spot in Elana's life. But the couple's return to Canada would soon bring the same old story back, this time in a far more dangerous form. In the next chapter, we'll look at how a picture-perfect, happy life was carefully curated on social media, while a completely different story was playing out behind closed doors. In late 2009, Mohammed and Elana returned to Canada with their children and settled back into their home in Ottawa. This time, Elana didn't stay on maternity leave long. She quickly landed a position as a family doctor at a prestigious hospital and started building a strong reputation in her field. Her husband, meanwhile, juggled his job, his studies, and teaching at a university. Social media was taking off worldwide around this time, and the couple started a personal blog presenting the image of a carefree, happy family. They posted travel photos, talked about their professional achievements, showed off their comfortable lifestyle, attended fancy conferences and trendy resorts, and dined out with friends at expensive restaurants. From the outside, they looked like a successful, wealthy, deeply in-love couple with nothing wrong in their lives. But their followers had no idea what was hiding behind that polished image. In reality, Mohammed had once again pulled away from his wife and kept her under tight control. He monitored who she spent time with, what she wore, and even checked her email and social media accounts. He openly criticized her looks, her style, and her parenting, and Elana stayed silent through all of it. The tension and hostility coming from Mohammed only grew worse. He'd yell at her and blame her for every argument, every misunderstanding between them. In 2011, this talented neurosurgeon was offered a spinal surgery fellowship at a major medical center in Calgary. He took it, but this time he went alone, leaving his family behind in Ottawa. Since Elana couldn't leave her job for over a year, they kept the relationship going long distance. During one visit home, Mohammed left his laptop open, and Elana saw a message from another woman on his social media, one that made it clear they were involved romantically. When she confronted him directly, he didn't even bother denying it. He admitted to the affair outright. It was another devastating blow for Elana. She once again considered leaving her unfaithful, disrespectful husband, and her family was certain that this time she wouldn't forgive him. But remarkably, she gave the marriage one more chance. That decision, equal parts hope and love, would take them to Toronto, where a new chapter was about to begin, carrying the same old story with them. Shortly after the move to Toronto, Mohammed brought up the same old wish. He wanted a son. Elana agreed, hoping a third child might finally help hold their broken marriage together. In October 2013, they welcomed a son, whom they named Marius. Mohammed was happy about the baby, but his attitude toward his wife never changed. Over the next few years, Mohammed poured himself entirely into his medical career. He became a respected neurosurgeon known for taking on the toughest, most hopeless cases other doctors turned away. Elana, meanwhile, advanced in her own field and became a delegate for the Ontario Medical Association. But tension between them began building again. Mohammed didn't stop at insults and disrespect. He started hitting her again. During a family ski trip, Elana suffered a deep cut on her arm that needed stitches, along with several other injuries, but she claimed she'd fallen while skiing. Back home, Elana told her closest friend the truth. All of those injuries had come from her husband, after a fight sparked by yet another affair she'd discovered. She'd overheard part of a phone call between Mohammed and his mistress, and when she confronted him about it, he hit her. Her friend again suggested divorce, and when Elana refused, joked that she should have a revenge affair of her own. The two women laughed it off at the time, but that idea may have quietly settled somewhere in the back of Elana's mind as a way to hit back at a husband who kept betraying her. The summer of 2016 was rough on the family. The older kids were away at camp, the youngest was staying with his grandparents, and the marriage was completely falling apart in the meantime. In early September, they marked their 12th wedding anniversary and even shared it on social media, but just a week later, they were talking about divorce. Mohammed flatly refused to give her one, insisting he was content with things as they were. Elana, by this point emotionally worn down, started seeing a colleague who'd shown interest in her. It was a path now leading toward an outcome no one would be able to stop. Elana began a relationship with her colleague, and in it, she rediscovered a feeling of being loved and wanted that she hadn't felt in years. But was she really planning to run off with him and leave her children behind? That question was on a lot of people's minds at the time. On November 25, 2016, a major fight broke out at home after Elana told her husband that divorce was no longer avoidable. The next day, she met with a divorce lawyer, then left for a 3-day medical conference in another city. During that time, Mohammed sent her repeated messages, begging her to reconsider. If not for their marriage, then at least for the kids. On November 30th, Elana came home and made what would be her last phone call to her parents. There was a hint of worry in her voice, but she assured them everything was fine. It later came out that she'd tried calling the police that evening, but in her panic, misdialed a single digit. A small mistake that would carry devastating weight. On December 1st, when Anna couldn't reach her daughter, she called her son-in-law to find out what was going on. Mohammed calmly told her that Elana had packed her bags in the middle of the night and left to be with her lover, abandoning him and the kids. Her parents refused to believe it. They knew their daughter would never leave her daughters and young son behind like that. They immediately reached out to a close friend of Elana's who lived nearby, asking her to quietly keep an eye on the Shamji house while they caught the first flight to Toronto and reported their daughter missing to police. Elana's friend confirmed her car was still parked in the driveway, which only deepened the family's alarm. When they arrived at the house, nothing seemed obviously out of place, but Mohammed was visibly agitated, insisting the police call had been unnecessary and that Elana was with her lover. He'd already given police that same story when they'd come by earlier. In the early hours of December 2nd, a man walking his dog along a riverbank about 24 miles from the Shamji home spotted a large suitcase at the base of a bridge. He almost walked past it, but something about how new it looked made him curious. When he opened it, he was horrified. Inside was the lifeless body of a blonde woman. He immediately called the police, and the suitcase and body were sent for identification. There wasn't much difficulty identifying her. The killer hadn't even bothered to remove the luggage tag, which was still attached from Elana's recent conference trip. Her parents confirmed her identity. The autopsy revealed multiple bruises and injuries, but the actual cause of death was strangulation, combined with a broken neck. She was dressed in pajamas, had no shoes on, and based on the position of her body, she'd been placed in the suitcase almost immediately after death. That evening, Mohammed was arrested at a coffee shop where he was meeting with a lawyer. It was clear he'd been preparing to leave the country, but he never got the chance. He was charged with first-degree murder, and the neurosurgeon flatly denied any involvement. But there was another gut-wrenching detail still to come. The couple's oldest daughter, 12-year-old Jasmine, had accidentally witnessed her mother's killing. According to the girl, she heard screaming and noise coming from her parents' room and ran to check. She cracked the door open and saw her father kneeling behind the bed. Her mother was likely on the floor, but Jasmine couldn't see her from where she stood. Mohammed screamed at his daughter to leave immediately, shut the door behind her, and sent her to bed. The next morning, he told the girls their mother had left. Despite her age, Jasmine sensed something terrible had happened. But she couldn't have imagined that her own father had taken her mother's life. To spare his daughter from having to testify in court, the accused eventually confessed and described what happened that night. According to him, he and his wife had argued over her infidelity and her desire for a divorce. Mohammed claimed he never meant to hurt her, but the fight spiraled out of control. The argument turned physical, and Elana tried to call the police, but Mohammed knocked the phone out of her hand. She started screaming, and he struck her repeatedly in the face, then pinned her to the floor and strangled her with his hands. At that exact moment, their daughter walked in, but the bed blocked her view of what was happening. When Mohammed realized his wife had stopped breathing, he tried to revive her, but it was too late. In his rage, he had broken her neck. He put her body in a large suitcase, loaded it into his car, and drove around aimlessly for hours, unsure of what to do. Eventually, he reached a small bridge over a river and threw the suitcase in, hoping the current would carry it away. But in the dark, he didn't realize it had gotten stuck against the bridge's foundation. In the fall of 2017, while the surgeon's trial was still underway, a new scandal broke when his father, Farid Shamji, made deeply offensive remarks about his late daughter-in-law, attempting to justify his son's actions by claiming she'd been unfaithful and had provoked him. Those comments triggered an investigation into the elder Shamji, and by April 2019, his medical license had been revoked. In April 2019, Mohammed was found guilty of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison, with a chance of parole after 14 years. Accounting for time already served, he could be eligible for release as early as 2030. He was also barred from contacting his children or Elana's parents, and was ordered to pay them a substantial sum in compensation. His medical license was permanently revoked, meaning he can never practice medicine or teach again. Today, the couple's now orphaned children are being raised by Elana's parents, growing up in the shadow of their mother's memory and their father's crime.
The man who murdered a highly respected doctor in Toronto more than 2 years ago got his sentence today. Mohammed Shamji is going to be in prison for at least 14 years. Shamji is also a doctor and the husband of Elana Fric. Shamji pleaded guilty last month to second-degree murder for killing Fric while their 3 children slept. A life sentence is automatic. Only the parole eligibility had to be determined today. Crown and defense agreed on 14 years.
And that's the tragic story of Dr. Mohammed Shamji and Dr. Elana Fric Shamji. A story that's a stark reminder that fame, wealth, and success can never fully hide the abuse someone might be living through behind closed doors. If you found this story compelling, make sure to hit that like button. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you haven't already, subscribe so you don't miss the next case. See you in the next video.